Hello leaders, thank you for investing your time with us for this micro tutorial on the admissions telephone skills feedback system. As a team leader in a Paul Mitchell school and as a corporate coach, as a corporate admissions leader, I've listened to and provided feedback on thousands of enrollment calls. And through the process, I've learned a ton about performance evaluation, about coaching, about mentoring. Some of that learning came from being mentored and being coached. Some of it came through victories as a coach, and a lot of it came through failure as a coach. So therefore, my intention today is really to help you make this process of inspecting, coaching, and mentoring more meaningful, less stressful for you and your team members. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some best practices for this system before, during, and after. See, what we know is that 65% of team members, they want more feedback. They actually want it. Believe it or not, they believe that they're hungry for it, that feedback is really important. Especially as we look at the millennial generation and Gen Z, being mentored and getting quality feedback is incredibly important to them because they view themselves as lifelong learners. It also sends a message to them and it communicates them that they are important, that if you're going to invest your time and your expertise, your experience with them, it communicates they're important. And what we know too is that those who have a mentor and receive feedback, they're going to stay longer. So this is going to help not only with performance, but with retention of those key players that you want to keep on your admissions team. So the system is really two parts. We created this how-to form and then also the form itself. So the how-to form you want to go ahead and download and discover. If you need to hit pause here, do that, as well as the feedback form. So before. So again, discover this, but discover it with your team. So you probably want to download it, read through it, and before you ever start using it, call your enrollment team together, maybe it's at a weekly download, and discover this form, the how-to together, as well as the actual feedback form. This way everyone is on the same page and understands how their performance will be evaluated, how it's used, what your intentions are. Before you start and sit down and do this, plan for an entire day and maybe even multiple days. We know that observing one phone call, two phone calls is not going to really give us the quality understanding of what we need to know. And you need your team to get more comfortable, to be more authentic and natural with you, to see what's really happening. What's important too is you want to give your team time to book out that day to make those calls and multiple types of calls. So you don't want to just observe like an initial phone call. You want to be able to observe follow-up phone calls, confirmations, things of that nature, all different types of calls. So here we do say this is admissions, but know this can be used for your marketing team as well when you're observing calls to accounts, or even your financial aid team when they're calling as well. One thing that is incredibly important is being able to model the process. Your team's really going to respect your expertise, your experience with it. If you're not comfortable with it, we do have a tutorial on the admissions telephone questionnaire that's available to you on the hub, so something you can watch. Our corporate team is more than happy to help you. And in our orientation course, we actually provide sample phone calls for you to listen to as well. So be prepared to model the process. If they have questions, you'll need to be able to answer those. If you've heard of compound interest, consistency is really the compound interest when it comes to feedback. It doesn't have to always be a complete formal session where you're sitting down and you're using the form. It can be small micro coaching opportunities that you're using, maybe during your daily update, maybe when you are observing one or two phone calls. So you can use this as both like a micro session and those big macro sessions where you're using it through the day. So important here that you understand how this form is used. So it's ultimately to provide some recognition, but also don't be afraid to share those areas of improvement. Remember, they're hungry for it, and when it's done the right way, it's incredibly effective. You want to start empowering your team to understand how to self-discover, self-assess. You want to learn how to be specific with your feedback, set some expectations, and develop that follow-up plan. So during Check your intentions at the door. So before you walk in, know that you are ready. You are there to show up to learn. I've discovered that if I go in and I know what I'm looking for, ultimately that's what I find. So we've got to put ourselves in the right mindset as a mentor and a coach that we're here to learn. And if we need to verbally communicate that to our team members to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, we need to do so. So walking in and saying, I'm so excited to learn from you today, to observe, to give you some feedback when it comes to the telephone. Also, ask your team. Make sure that this is a good time, that they're ready. How can you make them more comfortable and make this process more natural? So go in asking, definitely a part of our culture. It also is going to help you to be out of view for that team member who's on the phone. Here's what can happen. If you're sitting across the desk from them, you're going to hear them say something and they're going to look at you and get real nervous and then lose their train of thought, and they're going to be constantly looking for your nonverbal cues of how they're performing. So if they can't see you, they can't do that. They can't be a distraction. And me, here's a guilty learning from experience. I can remember non-verbally saying things to a team member who was on the phone as they were there talking, and I guess I thought they were a lip reader. They weren't. It created a horrible distraction. It messed up the phone call. So you got to get out of their view so that you can absolutely let them be more comfortable and they're not distracted by you. You're not distracted by them. Let them learn, as hard as it may be. You hear them fumbling, you hear them stumbling. You just got to let them work through it. You got to give them the independence and empower them, because if you interrupt them, it's going to undermine the process completely. So let them learn. Now, if you hear something that's non-compliant, absolutely interrupt. Don't let them be non-compliant, but otherwise let them learn through the process. And of course, use this form as your guide. You're going to be writing your comments, making a few notes as you go through here, and this way you can have an idea of what you're looking for. So after, go ahead and score together. You've recorded your comments, your recommendations during, but give them a copy of the form too and say, hey, let's go through, how do you think you did? How'd you feel about that call? Asking those great sample questions that we have are really going to help you as you score this together. Be cognitive again and self-aware of your body language. Listen to the tone of your voice as a coach, as a mentor. Absolutely observe maybe your facial expressions. I have a tendency to get my eyes a little closer, to squint a little when I'm thinking, and sometimes that can look like I'm giving negative feedback. So I have to be very aware of what my facial expressions are communicating as well as my words. Ultimately, during this session, you want to make sure that you're curious, and again, that you're using those sample questions that are provided and create your own. You want to be specific with your feedback. What's that sound like? You're going to say something like, I noticed when you were talking about specialty classes, you didn't sound as confident. So what can we do to help you become more confident, more knowledgeable about specialty classes so you can share those benefit statements? So be very specific. They're hungry for it. And again, if you do it right, they're going to love it. Don't be afraid to delegate coaching. If there's another team member who does something really well, recommend them. So you may say, hey, Stephanie is really great at the financial aid meeting preparation. I've heard her do that on the phone. So why don't you guys just, go grab a cup of coffee, talk through this, maybe dress rehearse it, see what you can learn. And, Stephanie could probably really learn about open-ended questions from you. So I think you guys could definitely work together on this. Also, dress rehearsal. You may get resistance on this. I initially did not want to dress rehearse as a new admissions leader in any of my roles. But I've really become to discover value in dress rehearsal. I think about pro players. How much time do they spend practicing every week? And you may bring that up to your team. Think using an example of a maybe pro basketball team or pro softball team. How many hours do you think they spend in dress rehearsal every week? How many hours does Beyonce dress rehearse every week? Make it fun, make it relatable. And what's incredibly powerful with this too are group mentoring sessions. The more we know about Gen Z, the more we know about millennials, the more powerful we know group mentoring can be. So, setting down and dress rehearsing as a team can be incredibly effective. As is important as the total before the during is ending with that summary, establishing your next steps, and committing to a follow-up date. And here's the thing, if you're going to establish a contract for the follow-up date, it's up to both of you to keep this. So put it on your calendar. Set the date. If your team member doesn't show up, then you head right in there and show up for them. Show them how important this is to you by keeping your commitments for follow-up on this. Some additional resources I think might really help. You can find these articles here. These are really going to help you with coaching on calls. And then here's your call to action. You can see in your syllabus what your assignment is with this, and that's uploading the feedback form to the site. And remember that you're going to get the most out of this. It's going to be the most meaningful and the less stressful when it's something that you do consistently with your team. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck in inspecting, coaching, mentoring your team members on your telephone systems.